Hello, welcome to another Northstar Talks Politics. I hope you folks are all well. Uh, for those of you new to my channel, I've done a number of these Talks Politics videos. I have a whole playlist of them. I suggest checking it out. I am Northstar. I am actually disabled with long COVID, and this is going to come into the video at a couple points. Unable to work due to it, and in a tough situation. Now, let me start right off. You probably saw the title Faux Democracy and the Ratchet Effect. I'm presuming at this point that's what I'll go with when I was brainstorming this video. Uh, I'm hoping to discuss with you folks, if you'll bear with me a moment here, the Ratchet Effect. First of all, the Ratchet Effect, this is, well, I'm not particularly endorsing this guy's views. He does a good job explaining what the Ratchet Effect is and has this nice little visual of a ratchet. Uh, Quite simply, the Ratchet Effect is where you have in politics, you have change in one direction, and the other party that didn't make the changes prevents backsliding, prevents the changes from being undone. In the case of the United States, we have two right wing parties. We have the GOP, who pushes things to the right. Sometimes the Democrats push things to the right too, such as with Bill Clinton, where he massively cut into the welfare system, limited medical residency training, created exemptions to Social Security, disability retirement, work credit system with Newt Gingrich that personally have screwed me over because jobs that you do for a university while you're a full time student don't earn payroll tax credit, even if the same exact work would earn you credit in private sector when you're not employed for the university. Universities are nonprofits, so it's not really. I mean, it's nonprofit sector. There's a few for profit these days. Um, and this has been written about over and over. Lately, you have these right wing assholes like the Mises Institute trying to hijack discussion and make it so when people search Ratchet Effect, you'll find stuff by them. Ignore them. They're evil pricks and right wing think tanks funded by billionaires. You should never listen to anything the Mises Institute says. They are absolutely moronic and dishonest as hell. Now, anyways, there's still, if you search add a few keywords to your search, such as Ratchet Effect Democrats Prevent, you'll get how it generally actually works in U.S. politics. Instead of Montan's about the expanding state that Ratchet Effect prevents from being rolled back, which is bullshit. Unless you're talking about the power of the executive, because actually budgets for everything non-military get cut and cut and cut relative to inflation and real purchasing power in the United States. It is not a case of an expanding government, but of, in fact, one that's shrinking. Total government spending goes up, but that's because of the military. That's because of intelligence services, which I'm lumping with the military. Um, that is a little bit also State Department foreign influence operations. But those are the costs of the U.S. empire. Everything aside from that shrinks. Um, anyways, uh, Mises sincere bastards. I'm not going to let them control this discussion. Uh, this guy is talking about Gaza, how you had a choice between the GOP supporting the genocide there or the Republicans. That is, in his view, and that is another way that people talk about the ratchet effect, whether it is cuts to things like welfare, cuts to various government regulations, what was happening in Gaza, or the increasing power of the state and the shift towards fascism, which the Mises Institute pricks try and hijack the discussion, but they ironically make some of the a point that they probably would rather not people be aware of, which is that both parties are moving things towards authoritarianism. But it is the GOP that leads the way on that, not the Democrats, which they would claim. But you reverse the parties, and you actually get a true statement, ironically, otherwise. Now, the what's currently going on in the United States is the GOP is trying to cut the Medicaid budget to its bones. They are cutting the House Energy and Commerce Committee budget, which spends 93% of its budget uh, that's not from Medicare on Medicaid. So it's Medicare, it's Medicaid, there's a small administrative budget. Their entire non-Medicare, non-Medicaid budget is 581 billion. The Republicans are trying to cut 880 billion, and they look that they're going to get their way with this. They're making even bigger cuts to food stamps, at least proportionally. At least they're hoping to. What will actually come out of this is a whole different matter, and you'll find different people saying different things about what they're after, because the whole name of the game is obfuscation with these kind of budgets. But in the end, massive cuts to the welfare system. Do you think that this is going to come back? These programs that help people, that help, say, myself, disabled, long COVID, and able to work, and already give so little help, the government, that it's not even hardly possible to survive. I mean, food stamps, sure, it gives money for food, although I have special dietary needs with IBS-like symptoms developed long COVID. I have to eat gluten-free stuff, basically, because I can't tolerate wheat anymore, for instance. Um, I need to either take lactate or get lactose-free milk because I don't tolerate lactose. There's a lot of things that drives up, so it doesn't go as far as you would think. Um, but food and healthcare, not having to worry about those costs, means at least that my savings only gradually decline because I've been screwed out of disability by this stupid rule and the fact that it's all or nothing. If you fall one credit short of the disability work credits requirements, this is what I should be short. They're saying I'm 2 credits short, but they're missing a credit, and I haven't been able to fix that because they're saying, oh, we'll only take W-2s, and then because it's so long ago, it's not possible with the W-2s anymore. But it doesn't matter. I've figured out, I thought maybe it was 2 credits. It turns out it's only one work credit they're missing. So I'm still 1 credit shy. If you're 1 credit shy, you get nothing. And I'm only 1 credit shy because like 3 or 4 credits. No, because I already had 2 for, sorry, for 2 because you only had 4 a year, but would have been 3 or 4 if there hadn't been other work that year. But 2 credits are being stolen from me because of the stupid payroll tax exemption while you're a university student. As a graduate student, to be clear, investing in myself to try and become a medical scientist or a physician, which was the main goal, but the backup goal of becoming a medical scientist, because not everyone makes it to be a doctor. You need a backup plan. Investing in yourself, trying to be a productive member of society, and by the way, doing free, unpaid work all the time as a graduate student in scientific research. It's very common. So actually contributing to society, just not getting paid for it on top of that, on top of the actual paid work I did that I got cheated out of, where I did get paid and it didn't count to payroll. That's my own particular situation. But there's a lot of disabled people, I'll point out, that are slowly going to bankruptcy, even with food stamps and with Medicaid. And now they're going to cut these programs. And this is going to make problems like homelessness worse in the United States. This is going to make working poor, because yes, working people receive these programs. In fact, when I was working one job, my boss was trying to bully me into taking food stamps instead of agitating that maybe he should pay us a little higher wage. I'm not kidding you. I literally had a boss do this. They were paying us $1 over the federal minimum wage, $8.25 an hour, and I was saying, well, baby, you could pay nine or 10. And he was saying, why don't you apply for food stamps? It's like, I am working. At the time, I had this whole thing: if you get on food stamps, it'll ruin your life because people find out and not hire you for jobs in the future. I had this probably paranoia about it, but it was due to toxic family and my father pushing those ideas. Um, Regardless of that, and there is a lot of shame and stigma attached to welfare systems, you can be working and receive these programs. Many people are. So it's not just people who are disabled, sick, temporarily out of work who are receiving them. It's people who are working. And this is what I want to point out. In the slide towards worse and worse material conditions in the United States, as things get harder for ordinary people, and this eventually leads to the hauling out of the center to people turning to far-right ideology, or in very small numbers to socialism, which would be much better than what they're turning to, which is fascism. You cannot ever convince me that socialism is worse than fascism. In fact, I am a socialist, but it wouldn't matter if I wasn't. The historical record is clear that fascism is a much, much, much more dangerous ideology that does much worse things to people than any socialist one that's ever existed. But people are turning to these ideologies because the center is hollowing out, because their lives are getting worse. And what's going to happen when Trump is gone, when Trump either dies of old age because nobody lives forever, or God, maybe some asshole assassinates him? That'd be a stupid idea because they turn him into a martyr, and JD Vance is probably worse than Trump. Probably chose someone worse than him as vice president intentionally so that someone would try to do something like that. Although it didn't stop some idiot from shooting him in the ear, so you never know what'll happen. Or, he'll get impeached. It doesn't matter. At some point, Trump will be gone, whether he's dead or impeached. Nobody is president forever. And at some point, the Democrats will theoretically take power again unless America goes full on fascist now and there are no more elections, or the elections become so rigged with rabid voter suppression with requiring passports to vote that the Democrats can't win anymore because the whole system is rigged. And by the way, the passports may sound like, well, you just get a passport. But what happens is that it becomes increasingly difficult for people in poorer communities to get passports because coincidentally, the offices that provide these will have their hours reduced, will have their staff cut in areas that are poor. The fees will be raised, and you'll have racism and class bias against poor people who come in who try and get their passports. You'll have some bureaucrats who just coincidentally say, oh, we can't accept this form of documentation. Can you provide 6 more? So they will try and deny people they don't want voting passports, even though they should legally be able to vote. So, assuming though we don't go into that full-on level of authoritarianism, Trump will be gone someday. But the Democrats won't change things. They will not. I mean, they'll change things a little. They'll tweak around the edges, but they won't undo the Trump tax cuts if Trump doesn't succeeds making his previous tax cuts permanent now, or he creates a new set before he leaves office. They won't undo his budget cuts, most of them. They might bring back 10% of a huge amount of what was cut. So, if he cuts 900 billion, maybe they'll bring back 90 billion. But for the most part, things will remain the same because the Democrats act as a ratchet. They prevent change back from whatever the GOP has been pushing. It's been this way for decades in the United States, and that's not changing. And sometimes the Democrats will even push things in a shared direction. Biden actually deported more people per week than Trump has been doing for as of now, which we'll see how that changes because Trump is trying to get up to much larger numbers than Biden did. But so far, it's been not very successful because of incompetence and overreach and judges blocking what he was doing, where they didn't block Biden because there's this idea that the Democrats are always doing the right thing, even when they're clearly not. So, Biden deported a ton of people. Obama increased government surveillance and made the Patriot Act permanent, basically, and did unconstitutional, illegal drone strikes in other countries without Congress's approval much of the time, and definitely a violation of international law. And sometimes even in a few cases, if I remember correctly, U.S. citizens were killed in these strikes, which is definitely a violation of U.S. law. Democrats have done detention without trial. It's not been just a GOP thing. They have increased the power of the ICE, of the Border Patrol, and all these other agencies. The FBI has become more and more oppressive under Democrats. It's not just been a Republican thing. And we're not even talking about past Democrats like, for instance, Truman, who was a piece of shit and almost a Republican. And helped set things up for the second Red Scare. No, we're talking about more modern Democrats. We're talking about the Bill Clintons of the world. We're talking about the Jimmy Carters of the world. They increased the power of the surveillance state and the security apparatus too. So sometimes the Democrats push things in the wrong direction. Sometimes they just fail to reverse them. But Americans do not have real political choice. We do not have democracy with a little d. What the Democrats are doing is anti-democratic. That it is against the principle of democracy. Um, because people don't have a real choice, because no matter which way they vote, they're going to get shifted to the right. It's only a matter of how quickly, and there's no possibility for things to shift to the left because the Democrats purged left-wing members from their own party. They rigged their primaries. They got caught doing this with Bernie, and they just said, well, we're a private organization. We're under no obligation to run fair primaries. And that argument was accepted in a court of law because it's actually true. They're under no obligation to run fair primaries, and they don't. Um, and we have a system, winner take all, that prevents third parties from getting anywhere. The only way that America's going to avoid things getting worse and more people getting drawn into the far right spiral that leads the country towards fascism is if either a third party somehow replaces one of the two parties, if we're stuck with the two party system, or there is a removal of the two party system, such as due to a new constitutional convention, which can be called, or a constitutional amendment, or probably a couple, to actually effectively eliminate the two party system, make it so third parties can thrive without acting as spoilers. You need things like proportional representation or ranked choice voting. You would need changes to the electoral college. There's a lot of things that could be done. They won't be done. Most likely, nothing will change, and America will slip towards fascism. If not now, because I have been very clear about this repeatedly, that it's not necessarily going to happen in the next 4 years with Trump. It could. I am trying like hell to get out of the country, but it's not guaranteed. It will happen in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years because with the ratchet effect, the Democrats will prevent things from being fixed. I guarantee you, if the Democrats get in power again, they'll probably do either a return to normalcy. That's the most likely. Or maybe they'll say they're undoing what Trump does and they'll make small changes, but they won't even undo the extent of damage he did. And they'll say, oh, we can't move too aggressively because it'll destabilize the country, or it's anti democratic, or we have to reach across the aisle or compromise. We're the same as Republicans if we undo the things they did. Not quite. There's a difference between pushing a country towards fascism and as rapidly as possible rolling back those changes so that the country doesn't remain in danger of fascism. But the Democrats are not honest actors. They take money from the same billionaire donors the GOP does, and the country is most likely doomed. Um, many people will choose to stay in the country and live in denial of where things are headed, or they think that they can resist effectively with the security apparatus, the level of FBI and SA surveillance. That's not likely to happen. I'm just telling you. I'm trying to get out of the country because there's nothing more that I could do here, even if I was able bodied. And I'm not going to suffer just because what's happening is wrong. It's not going to help to have me here stuck on their system, even if I was able to buy it, even if they rolled out a cure for long COVID tomorrow when I could go back to trying to become a physician. Um, there's no potential to change the system to work within the system anymore. I mean, by that, not working within an electoral system, but I mean like I thought at one time I'd become a physician and I would maybe uh, make connections and try and fund nonprofit initiatives that might change some things about how healthcare is screwed in this country, and maybe make some speeches about how we need Medicare for all. And maybe I could do some of these things and help at least within my quote lane of the medical system, not really messing with many other issues in the country, at least make some changes for the better, at least make subtle changes behind the scenes. That's not possible anymore, really, for anyone. There is a quote deep state, but the deep state always, and in any country, because it's not just a U.S. thing, represents the interest of the ruling class. Why would it represent the interest of anyone other than the people with power? The way these bureaucrats, who are career bureaucrats, come into power is through the approval partly of bosses who are political appointees. Sometimes they themselves start off with political appointees. Maybe they gain experience, then they move into something that's supposedly meritocratic. And beyond that, there's subtle ways that supposedly jobs they're just civil service end up getting given to people who are loyalists, or people who aren't loyalists get purged to make up claims of incompetence. There's a lot of pressures, but in the end, the deep state serves the interests of the ruling class, the billionaires. There is some effort of people in the inside to resist some of the worst tendencies. No question, there are bureaucrats with a conscience who try and soften the blow of the worst laws, try and find ways to enforce things as little as possible if they're wrong and evil, but they still, uh, in the end, have to enforce things, and many of them gladly enforce the shittiest things the government does. The rules and disability that screw over people. For instance, I got a letter from Social Security Administration. I sent them an appeal on something. They said they couldn't read the handwriting appeal, wouldn't accept it. But then they apparently processed it anyways as if they could without telling me. After telling me over the phone they weren't going to process the thing. Then they sent me a letter just now saying they had requested 2 times writing. They sent me nothing writing, requested nothing, a W-2 about the missing job income they had, which they told me over the phone I needed. They never sent me in writing. Went and tracked it down, found that it wasn't possible with the W-2s. They're legally supposed to accept alternative documentation, but I decided it wasn't worth the fight of a letter from my previous employer stating when I worked and how much I made, which is an alternative form of documentation they're legally required to accept, but we'll try and fight because it would only get me one more credit. I needed two, and there's no others to be found anywhere. And the thing I was getting screwed on, the other job that was missing, turned out to be this payroll tax exempt university job. So they can't add that. There's nothing I can do. But bureaucrats are lying. They did not request anything in writing. They instead just went radio silent for months and then claimed they had requested stuff and that the request had timed out, that they never made the request in the first place. Why? Because the particular bureaucrats at the local office seem to be cruel-hearted and enjoy hurting people. I ended up calling the national office to get people who actually wanted to help. And yes, there were good people at the national office, but the local office has some shitty people because there are a mix of good and bad people in the bureaucracy like anything else. And it slants towards the worst people staying on, not the best, because the people who try and help people get in trouble for it. This is one of the reasons that the deep state serves the interest of the ruling class, because when they don't, they get in trouble for it. Also, because of pressures to put those sort of people in power in the first place, people who the ruling class know will serve their interests, they try and get in those positions. There's a million reasons why. So Trump isn't fighting the deep state exactly, although members of the bureaucracy, career bureaucrats, don't want to lose their jobs to him. It's more like he's just taking to 11, dialing up to 11, the things that they've been doing anyways. I mean, people think Trump and the FBI are at odds. I would remind you that the FBI has, in some cases, been accused of murdering activists, such as certain environmentalists in the 90s and leaders of the Black Panther Party in the 70s in collaboration with the Chicago Police Department. They have engaged in constant civil liberties violations, which they've gotten in trouble for sometimes. You think these sort of people really hate Trump? I mean, maybe there's differences in uh, tactics, but their overall strategic goals are similar to the Republicans, they're similar to Trump's, and that is to move the country towards authoritarianism. They just maybe want to do it in a more subtle, cooler, more well hidden way than Trump does. That's the only real difference there. Um, and the Democrats will not roll these things back because they serve as the ratchet and the ratchet effect. And even if they stop doing that for a little while, even if for a little while the Democrats stop preventing the changes the GOP makes from being undone, they'll go right back to that after a little while. Old habits die hard. Billionaire donors are hard to ignore. So this is where the country is headed. I really recommend getting out of the country if you can. If you don't want to, be warned of what's coming. Try and take care of your own safety. Um, I myself, only reason I am at all even confident in speaking like this is because I am screwed as good as dead if I can't leave the country, and if I do leave the country, I don't think I'm in much danger. Can't If I'm stuck in the country, the welfare systems that I'm required to survive will be destroyed, and Trump will come after socialists like me and put me in a forced labor camp, which is my long COVID, will probably kill me. That's what's most likely to happen. I mean, it'll be a prison or something for my political views or some trumped up charges for being a dissident, basically. But slavery is legal in prison, and it will basically be a forced labor camp. Or somewhere like Seacut that's completely inhumane and people die in. So it won't matter even if I didn't do this, if I didn't say this stuff, if I'm stuck here, because even if I didn't make it to the point of being attacked for my political views, I won't be able to survive without the welfare systems being cut. And if I do make other country, I'll be safe. But if you're stuck here, I might consider that you might want to go underground with political dissent, that you might want to protect yourself, you might want to hide, you might want to be ready for persecution. Just saying. Um, and I don't say that gladly. It's a very dark place the country is headed. This isn't what democracy is about, but this is where things are going. And the Democrats are spineless at best, and they are malevolent at worst. They do not want to fix things. Even Bernie Sanders with his against oligarchy campaign, he's raising money, but he's raising money for the Democratic Party. Even if he has the best intentions, the people who are getting this money aren't going to fix anything most of the time. We've seen how people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez comes in with these high hopes and she ends up selling out to the system. We've seen how Bernie Sanders caved on things like Gaza, caved on leaving the Democratic Party after 2016 when they blatantly rigged things against him, the Democrats. He could have led people to the Green Party. If you think that any of these people that Bernie is trying to help get in office are going to fix things, no, at best for a few years they're going to fight the system. Then they're going to give up. Then they're going to cave. Then they're going to be corrupted. They're going to become just like any Democrat. Because if they don't, they'll be removed from office and they'll think they can do more good being slightly less bad Democrats. And maybe they will do more good, but we don't need slightly less bad Democrats. We need radically different Democrats, and that's not going to happen. What we really need is an end to the two-party system. That's definitely not going to happen. I mean, the chances of a new constitutional convention being held, which is because you'd probably need multiple constitutional amendments all at once, that's the only way realistically you're going to get that, very slim. Heck, the libertarians have been calling for that for years, trying to change the country's constitution in a more right-wing direction, and they didn't get it. It's not going to happen to undo creeping fascism. So, you may think I'm full of it. If you disagree with me, try and leave an intelligent comment on this video. I don't mean you're wrong, I hate you, but, say something. Disagree, make your point. If you can spell it out, I'm likely to respond. I'm likely to respond even if it's to say you're a troll. Leave if all you say is I hate you. So this is a small channel. I engage with the viewers. But don't just take what I'm saying and ignore it and not even bother to try and argue your point. You're not helping anything that way. This is an important issue that needs to be debated. This is an important issue that needs to be discussed. If for no other reason, you should try and change my mind if I'm wrong so that we'll get on the side of a correct view of things. But, I expect that this video will have very little reach. YouTube will try and censor and suppress it like it's been doing all of my videos and all of the left-wing channels more subtly, but brand new ones like mine, it's easier to do. And I expect that my subscribers will remain incredibly low. I won't be able to get out of the country if I can't get to a point where I can monetize this channel and make enough money to say I can support myself and leave the country, because the only other way I could leave the country is marrying someone outside the country or having family outside the country. Do not have family outside the country, and I mean, I'm like a 16th generation American, literally. I'm one of the oldest families in the country, descended from, at least on one side of my family. I have Ellis Island ancestors too, much more recently, but no one even in the last century. My family's been in this country over 100 years, the most recent in over 300 years, some of the further back. And I am going to have to get the fuck out because I cannot survive here anymore, because the system has gone to the point of collapse and to the point of such perversity that, a plague that was mishandled, COVID, that disabled people, the people who were disabled by that, such as myself, are expected to just disappear and die. So, anyways, I wish you all the best, viewers. Take care of each other. Be kind to yourselves. May you always find a guiding star to lead you home. I'll be here, and I will be arguing for a little bit of sanity in this crazy world as long as I'm able, until I starve to death or become homeless or whatever shit the system forces me into if I can't get out. Wish you all the best. Adieu.